So Aaron Jones, he got hurt in the Bears game after hurting them in the opener, and he hasn't played since. So it's been Dylan. And a lot of people have said, oh, Dylan's having an awful year. What's going on? It's supposed to be his time. There's supposed to be this transition going on. Packers are like, our guys are hurt. Our line is beat up. Like, we can't run the ball. That's why. So I don't know that I'm looking at it and saying, okay, this is what Jordan Love is. This is what he's going to be the rest of his career. They're going to push it down the field with him. It feels like they're doing it out of necessity a little bit. I am surprised still, though, because was anybody saying that going into the season? All right, we're going to find out what Jordan Love is. And by the way, this dude's going to be slinging it. What? No, we expected them to run the ball and play defense. That's what we thought was going to happen. But it's interesting. The Packers have made this change because of the injuries, and they've been successful. Now, luck, yeah. Derek Carr got hurt, man. There's been some luck in that. There's a reason they had that 17-point comeback in the fourth quarter. Unbelievable. Like, Jordan Love, it goes down as the guy that had the best fourth quarter comeback at Lambeau as a Packer. Like, his career just started. Like, it's right. Just, of course, it's Jordan Love doing that. Ridiculous. So, like, what do? Do you do something props wise? I'm with you on the side. Like, it is such a coin flip. Mm-hmm. Maybe some clarity later on, but yeah, this is a really tough call between the two sides. Let's get to Goff. All right, so we might get bad news on the Lions' offensive line, and you mentioned how that's probably more impactful when it comes to the game, and I would agree with that. Boy, if they're missing the left side just like the Packers are, in addition to the other two starters, right now the only healthy offensive lineman they have is Sewell playing right tackle. Mm-hmm. What do we talk about? Goff versus pressure versus a clean pocket. He's great in a clean pocket. He's great indoors. Well, the situation today is outside, and he might be facing a lot of pressure. That's why I'm really scared to jump on the Lions here.
But here's another option, a different perspective, and it's a scarier proposition. But again, to win Survivor, you got to think a little outside the box. Is it possible that maybe we want to replace Arizona with another team that we want to fade as often as possible? When I look at my power ratings, the one team that could fit that description is the Chicago Bears. They fell off a cliff against the Chiefs, and they're taking on the Broncos. And despite Denver being 0-3 and on the road, they are 3.5-point favorites. Is now the time to take Denver, knowing full well you don't ever have to touch them again?
I think they're an option. I put a star next to them. They're one of the teams that I'm taking a very close look at. Yeah, are the Bears at home? What is another option for you? Would you take Denver at home against Zach Wilson next week? Is that a possibility? Maybe. Maybe that's the only option. One of the next 2 weeks. So, yeah, you're not going to use Denver any other time, but you don't have to use every team. I took a look at Denver. I look at those two teams, and the Bears can't do anything. At least Denver has an offense. At least there's that. And if you look at the injury on the Bears secondary, it is nasty right now. They were bad to begin with, and now they're missing almost every single starter. Like, every week they're losing someone back there. So I think that's an option. Some of the larger point spreads, Kansas City, I use them. For people that haven't, I would look at it and say, I'd rather use the Chiefs at Arrowhead.
Class is now in session.
Let's start with a pop quiz, shall we?
Professor Ed Egros is here to help you with your bets.
Who you play, where you've played them, at what point during the season you've played them. Being able to put all of that in context is really important.
Let's be sharper about this on BetQL Daily, presented by BetMGM.
The bigger question, obviously, when it comes to evaluating the Dolphins is, okay, yeah, first 3 games, they've been phenomenal. Really, really phenomenal. But can they keep that pace up or something close to it for the remaining 14 games? And that's what I wanted to try and figure out. When it comes to other fantastic starts over the last several years in the NFL, have we seen something similar, or have they tapered off in some way? So let's go back to expected points added. That's the metric that matters to me. Puts offense in context based upon down and distance, time on the clock, etc. And I wanted to see how correlated an offense's first 3 games are with the rest of the season. And dating back to 1999, as it turns out, there's a medium correlation between the first 3 games and the rest of the season. For my stat friends out there, the Pearson R is 0.49, which is part of the medium category. But the bigger question I wanted to look at was, okay, what about the best offenses, the ones that had the highest EPA per play rates through the first 3 games of any particular season? So I only looked at that group. And as it turns out, the Pearson R, or the correlation, it actually went down by 0.1. The Pearson R was 0.39. So the best offenses in football since 1999, they had a tougher time sustaining that success than just about any offense did. And this matters a great deal when we think about, say, the reasons why a team can get off to a hot start, be it just clicking, being really healthy, the defenses that they've gone up against, Joe, that you've mentioned. This matters a great deal. So in terms of EPA per play, the top 5 offenses through the first 3 games, you start with the Dolphins at 0.39. Then you have the 2018 Chiefs, the 2008 Broncos, the 1999 St. Louis Rams, and the 2020 Green Bay Packers. These 5 offenses have had the best starts through 3 games than anybody else in the NFL since 1999. Let's look at a couple of these in terms of what we can expect going forward. And let's start with the 2018 Chiefs. Fantastic offense led by Pat Mahomes, a team that made it all the way to the AFC Championship game, but lost in overtime at home to the New England Patriots and Tom Brady. So this was an offense that was still able to click. Maybe it tapered off just a little bit after 3 weeks, but it was still fantastic from beginning to end. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, look at the 2008 Denver Broncos. They struggled the rest of the year. After winning their first 3 games and doing it in dominant fashion, Jay Cutler faced some tough defenses. The degree of difficulty went up substantially. And yes, Jay Cutler was the quarterback, so bear that in mind.
Yes.
He only scored 7 against New England, and that was also in the first half of the season. The rhythm that looked promising never really materialized again. And so we have examples where phenomenal offenses, yeah, they dipped a little bit, but they were still great through season's end. And then others completely falling off a cliff. Now, if you're asking me which side I think the Dolphins are going to be on, I would say the former. I think with Tua and Tyreek and everybody else, especially with with Waddle coming back, this is a situation where I still like this Dolphins offense to potentially be the top offense in football. But are they going to be hanging 50 or 60 per game? Absolutely not. They are going to come back down to reality. Now, it's not going to be a massive thing. And this is actually one of the reasons why in this game against the Bills, I like the under 53.5. And if this number continues to skyrocket, it's probably a better thing for the bets to wait a little bit and then hammer the under, because I think at some point the Dolphins will regress a little bit, especially against that elite pass rush that the Bills are putting together. Injuries, bad luck, other factors can make an offense less effective. But more often than not, these hot starts actually lead to good, but not necessarily great finishes. So what's actionable here, Joe, is to be cautious. Keep in mind that, yes, Miami is great, but these hot starts are only somewhat sustainable, but it's not like they're going to completely fall off a cliff either.
First of all, the trade came out of nowhere. My initial gut reaction was Milwaukee obviously gets better and their ceiling raises, but how much better did they get? They were already the second choice to win the NBA championship, and to me, heading into the year, I would still rate Denver ahead of Milwaukee. So a lot of people, I tweeted, I was like, are we sure Milwaukee got that much better? They just lost arguably the best point of attack defender in Drew Holiday, and they got a 30-point per game scorer in Dame Lillard. That being said, Dame's a really bad defender, especially in the playoffs. So I got a lot of vitriol on coming back of like, of course they got better. They got Dame Lillard. I'm just like, they got better, but they also look a lot different now. Like how much better, because they were already really good. They were the number 1 seed last year. So I think Milwaukee, they're the favorites in the East. They probably were anyway heading into the year. So I just, again, I don't know if this was like oh my God, we got to get it on Milwaukee now. The trade didn't move me like that. Phoenix, heavy fade this year. That team's not winning a championship. Write it down, whatever.
Oh.
That team is this team, and this has nothing to do with Durant going from my favorite team to Phoenix. This is names on a piece of paper. This team is not real whatsoever. They're so far behind. They are far behind Denver. They're pretty far behind Los Angeles. They're probably far behind Golden State as well. This team has no big men whatsoever. They have no point guard. It's just names on a paper. So I don't think that this team is really well constructed whatsoever. And it's just a bunch of minimum guys and 3 really good players. So Nurkic, I don't know what Phoenix was thinking getting in this deal. Meanwhile, them doing this also facilitated a team conceivably, everyone seems to think they're now the title favorites. You just helped them. You assisted the trade happening. So I just don't know what Phoenix is thinking. I think that organization is really just drunk sailor right now, just spending aimlessly.
So good.
But yeah, so those are kind of my big takeaways.